A gun smuggling ring for a Mexican cartel flourished in a Wisconsin town for years, finally exposed when ATF agents traced a single sniper rifle back all the way to Racine, Wisconsin. $600,000 worth of military-grade firearms purchased with no red flags. News Nation's Jorge Ventura spoke with one of those agents today. Jorge, what are we learning about all of this?
Josh, we are learning that one of the most powerful cartels, the Jalisco Nueva Generación cartel, was able to purchase military-grade weapons here in the U.S. from a small town in Racine, Wisconsin. That's according to a new indictment showing hundreds of thousands of dollars of weapons purchased in under a year without any red flags. And according to court documents, a local family recruited friends and relatives to purchase guns on their behalf and transport them across the border. More than $600,000 in armor-piercing guns were bought in Racine alone. An ATF agent telling News Nation they were smuggled across the border by people with dual citizenship who would fly under the radar. Some of these guns were chopped up and later put back together. This all came to light after Mexican authorities discovered a Barrett .50 caliber rifle during a raid in 2018.
There was a .50 caliber rifle that was recovered, but it had an obliterated serial number. I was able to recover that serial number through techniques I can describe here and identify the purchase being made in Racine, Wisconsin.
Former ATF investigator Tim Sloan, who worked on this case, says he was able to trace that weapon back to Wisconsin and unravel a gun smuggling network. According to Sloan, these firearms weren't ending up in the hands of low-level cartel members, but to the top brass.
They were high-end rifles. They were probably $3,500 to $4,500 a piece. Plus, they had custom gold inlaid grips. So those firearms were not going to street thugs. Those firearms were going to the upper echelon of the cartel Jalisco.
And the reason it took so long for authorities to find out about this gun smuggling ring from Wisconsin to Mexico is that Wisconsin isn't required to report multiple purchases of high-grade weapons the way that some border states along Mexico are required to do so, Natasha.
Jorge Ventura live with that report and that interview with the ATF today. Thank you so much. And joining us now to discuss more about the details of this gun smuggling network, former CIA officer and FBI special agent, also News Nation national security contributor Tracy Walder. Tracy, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Natasha.
So, Tracy, we learned that this single rifle with the serial number scratched off was traced back to Racine. How exactly does that work?
Well, I mean, really what it boils down to is the point of origin of which the gun was manufactured. And I know that Jorge spoke earlier about the fact that some of these were reassembled in pieces. But the issue is they still have the serial number and still have those plates on the gun. And they run those through the systems and then those come back to the point of origin. And in this case, it was that facility in Racine, Wisconsin.
And according to the indictment, a local family was buying a lot of powerful guns, $600,000 worth in Racine and 2 connected cells. Why in Wisconsin wasn't that flagged by officials?
So there's actually a really simple and easy answer for that. The reality is this gateway of weapons is actually called the River of Iron. This is how many weapons, over about 250,000 weapons, cross the border every year into Mexico. 4 of the border states do have federal laws on the books that if a purchaser purchases multiple amounts of a certain type of weapon, in this case, probably the .50 calibers, that's one of the more sought after ones by these cartels, it is flagged to the ATF. Wisconsin is not one of those border states. And so that is why this flew under the radar.
And an ATF agent told us that 20% of all guns in Mexico are purchased by people with dual citizenship. What is the process for bringing a weapon as powerful as the ones you're describing to Mexico? Is it as easy as driving it over the border in the trunk of a car?
So typically, yes, most of them are driven over the border. A lot of times we see, particularly in Southern California, where there is this prominence of underground tunnels that seems to be through the old Tijuana cartels. The guns are shipped that way as well. And a lot of times, really, the number one way that these are gotten through are in pieces, because a lot of times if you drive them through the border, that's going to get searched. And a lot of times the gun in its totality will be found. However, the gun in pieces, it becomes very, very difficult to identify. I mean, we have to remember these 50 caliber guns weigh about 30 pounds. For the most part, you're not going to transfer it across the border fully assembled.
All right, Tracy Walder, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.